Hello all and welcome to episode 23 of the Sky Fantasy Football Podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. The Aston Villa Liverpool game hasn't quite finished. It's currently 7-2 to Aston Villa. If anything else happens in the last 10 or 15 minutes, we will let you know, though obviously you're probably all watching it. What an absolutely bonkers day. Welcome everyone. My name is Andrew and I'm joined as usual by two of the most successful managers in the game. Firstly, Paul McAnulty. Did you captain Van Dijk?
No, I think one of us captained Van Dijk, but I'm thankfully on Salah.
Right, okay. And how was your weekend gone?
So I didn't have. I only had two players playing yesterday, so I think I got 10 points. Today's went okay. I thought I was going to regret the Kane to Salah transfer, but I think I'm net up now, knowing that I would have captained Van Dijk had I not done it.
Awesome. We also have former Sky winner Dan Cox with us. Dan, who did you captain today?
I don't know what you're trying to upset me for already. Like, you know our captain, Van Dijk.
Van Dijk for his sterling -4. And who did you captain yesterday? How was your weekend overall gone?
That was really yesterday. I only had two players and I got 10 points, so it's pretty rubbish. So I dropped from 4k down to 10k, but as expected. And I was having a really good day today. Like Kane, clean sheet for McCarthy, Antonio, man of the match again, and yeah, it's a pretty good day. And Bruno, and then Captain Van Dijk, and it's like, what the hell is going on at Villa Park? Like, I'm pretty happy to have a -4, all things considered. It could be about a -10 or something. It's just how do you explain that one? A 7-2 away to Villa.
It hasn't finished yet, mate. Your -10 could still be on. Evening in the chat, Mark Daniels, Stephen Colthart, Mac Ben, Mark Brown, Luke Frith, Peter G, Marius Inita, Ian Parrin, and Liam Dorrian. Liam says the Southampton defenders redeeming themselves. I think Liam's team had a block Southampton defence, so he's done well there. Welcome everyone. As we are live, please feel free to join in the chat at any time. Let us know your thoughts on the topics throughout the relevant sections, and feel free to ask some questions for us to answer at the end. For any new watchers and listeners, you are very, very welcome. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and set the alerts so you don't miss our live stream, which are 9 p.m. every Sunday evening right here on this channel. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content, and don't forget to download our new free app, which includes everything our website offers. Just search for Fantasy Football Hub from wherever you get your app. So if everyone could please press like now. There's only 7 likes, but there's 44 watching. That would be a great start. Thank you very much for that. So I wrote this before the football this afternoon. But so after a crazy start to the season, the overhaul period is finally here. A time to completely refresh our teams, which I think most of us need to do as we head into the main bulk of the season with roughly 23 to 24 game weeks of action before we can refresh again in the second overhaul, which is sometime in February or March, I believe. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to look back at the first 4 game weeks, including pull stats, what we have learned, which I got to be honest, after today, it's just one of those kind of shrug your shoulders and, chuck a pin in it. But we'll see what we have learned. What we know fixture-wise so far for post-overhaul. Who are the overhaul bankers and enablers? Some mini-league updates before we finish off with Dan's rant. So firstly, Paul, could you give us some of your really interesting and detailed stats, please?
Yeah, sure. This doesn't obviously include the Liverpool Villa game that's going on just now, but it includes everything up to the Man United Tottenham game this afternoon. So there's 8 players that are on 9 or more bonus points so far this season. So we've got Gabriel, Tielemans, Calvert-Lewin and Kearney all on 9, De Bruyne and Højbjerg on 10, Dallas on 11 and Ayling on 12. So Dallas and Ayling's picked up bonus in every game so far this season. Ayling's picked up tier 2 tackles in every game as well. So
and they've played Liverpool and City, which obviously two of the hardest games they're going to have, aren't they? So
yeah, I think like Dallas is going to be one of those ones that I think's one of the first names on everyone's team sheet. So. Overhaul time 6.4 million. I think if Alan had been a little bit cheaper, he would have been considered too. Not suggesting that even at his price that he's not worth consideration, but certainly if you were going for one Liverpool defender, I'm pretty sure it'd be Dallas based on his price. Players that have completed the most passes, so we've got Højbjerg 311 passes in 4 games, Michael Keane 298, Gabriel, he's only played 3 of the 4 games as well, 280.
Oh.
Yerry Mina 271, and Mendy, the old 5.3 million a couple of seasons ago when everyone had him in the team. He's 262 passes, although you imagine Leicester might change things up after today's result. Shots on target, Kane leads the way with 10. You got Calvert-Lewin on 9, Antonio on 8, and someone I think might be going a little bit under the radar is Neil Maupay from Brighton. They've got really nice fixtures post Overhaul. He's only 8.3 million, and he's had 8 shots on target in 4 games so far. And on penalties, everyone's looking at penalty takers as well, so he might be a nice differential Overhaul time. And then successful tackles. So we've got Ayling and Mitchell from Crystal Palace on 19. Oh, I watched the Chelsea Crystal Palace game yesterday. I thought Mitchell was at fault for a couple of the goals, so I'm not too sure when Van Aanholt's due back, but it looks like he'll probably drop out. He was been a nice 5.2 million enabler. You've got Phillips from Leeds as well, 7.1 million. He seemed quite a way off on passes. I looked at his underlying passes stats, but he's won 17 tackles in the 4 games so far. Closely followed by Dallas on 16. And then you've got Romeo, who I talked about. Yeah, I was always a fan of him. He wasn't nailed last season. It kind of put me off a little bit the start of the season. I know he had played after Project Restart, but he's completed 13 tackles and he obviously scored today as well. Quite a nice volley for those who didn't see it. And then on 13 tackles as well, you've got O'Shea from West Brom. He's only 5.7 million defender. They're not going to keep many clean sheets though. And then Enda Stevens from Sheffield United, 13 tackles as well.
Wonderful stuff. Thanks for that, Paul. So with your initial instincts, of looking at the bonus, looking at the kind of players who are getting the bonus, what are your thoughts post Overhaul in terms of a formation?
Yeah, traditionally we've always wanted to go big at the back because with Liverpool defenders picking up the passing bonus usually, and the fact that the cheaper players tend to be in defence as well. You get nice tackle stats. I just think with the crazy scores that we've got going on just now, that there is some budget midfield enablers. You've got Basuma from Brighton. Brighton's got nice fixtures. I think he could pick up passing bonus as well. And then you've got Romeo, who I mentioned there. Højbjerg. He won't get many attacking returns. He picked up an assist today, but he's got 10 bonus points in 4 games, so 2.5 points per game. I think for 7.4 million, that tides him over quite nicely. And I think Mourinho likes him. He's played, I don't know if he's played every minute, but he's played the majority of minutes thus far. So probably I'm now thinking 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 probably. As I say, Dallas is one of the first names that'll be on my Overhaul team at 6.4 million, and there's Leeds captaincy required. We talked about clips last week, but they've got so many players in midfield, and obviously you can only fit so many of the players in. So Harrison comes back after the weekend's good performance. So I'm just not 100% sure that he'll start every game, and he seems to get subbed quite a lot. So Dallas and 3-4-3 probably is the formation I'm going to go for.
In terms of the third striker, are you thinking of going sort of really heavy up front, or saving the third one, for like an 8 or 9 million striker that you can maybe move into a 3-5-2 or a 4-4-2 as an example?
Yeah, I felt that the fixtures fell unfortunately, and that you almost have to have Kane or Son in your team, based on Spurs captaincy. And because Liverpool even though they play on Saturdays, and I appreciate the fixtures might change to fit all the TV times, but within the first 3 games post-Overhaul, Salah's at home to bottom half teams twice, and he'll be the most captain player. So you've got Kane and Salah's probably locked in my Overhaul team as well. So it's whether I want a third striker that fits that Neil Maupay, Patrick Bamford, Mitrovic type 8 million-ish, or do I want to use that money, or Calvert-Lewin as well? I know he's a little bit more expensive than that. Or do I want to spread the money out across midfielders, because there's a lot of options coming there, like James Rodriguez, Antonio. You think that Chelsea will kick on at some point, so Pulisic or Havertz or someone as well. So yeah, I've not entirely made up my mind. I know that Kane and Salah will both be in my team in Dallas, and probably with KDB's probably the sort of the 4 locks in my team so far.
Awesome, thank you very much, Paul. In the chat, it would be great to hear off everyone what your planned formation is going to be. Obviously, it doesn't have to be strict, but you must have an idea at the moment. Let us know in the chat what they are. And in the meantime, Dan, welcome. And what are your thoughts on post-Overhaul formation? Have you kind of drafted a team yet that you're looking at?
No, I haven't. I said a few on Twitter. That was weird because I see when the fixtures came out, was it on Friday, which I still think are going to move, but everyone had done a team with Jimenez and they've done this, and then Calvert-Lewin and James Rodriguez scored on Saturday. Then everyone sort of got them in, and then today, everyone will then have Son or Kane. I just don't know. It's I don't know. I do think 3 at the back. I think a 3-5-2, something like that. But I'm pretty flexible with it. But it's just trying to make some sense out of it all. Really, I don't know. It's a very strange start. Whether it's going to calm down after the international. I always think someone like Calvert-Lewin, he probably will be all right. But the way he started scoring, you can then just imagine that. You pick your Overhaul team with him in it, and then he won't score for 4 games or something. You think, oh, what if I picked him? You sort of get a bit conned, don't you, sometimes? So I'm always a bit wary of that. But no, I'm pretty open to it, really. I just want to see what happens with the fixtures. They're supposed to move, aren't they, over the international break? They're supposed to actually sort them out because they're going to move time slots. So a lot's depend on that. But yeah, I did had a look and got a short list of players, but I haven't got anything set in stone because just trying to make sense of it all, really.
Cool, thank you, Dan. So in the chat, we're getting a lot of 3-5-2s and 3-4-3s. I think it makes sense. I would say that the only thing that's, if Liverpool had kept a clean sheet in a later game, I was wondering, if we would see a bit more, 4-4-2. BVD and Robertson, wherever else. I think it's because every single game at the moment is on one after the other. We get the opportunity to watch every single game because every game is live as well. It's live on TV. All the players obviously know they're live on TV. There's the empty stadiums as well. I think we mentioned this last week. So every game is kind of like a training game almost. I do think that it's very easy to flit from one trend onto the other almost game by game. It's I bet you now that everyone is planning potentially on thinking of Grealish or Ollie Watkins, in their team. Whereas after the first game next time, we'll be looking at whoever scored the 2 or 3 goals there. So it's very, very difficult to kind of sit on your hands and give a holistic view when so much is going on all the time. But
2 players that after the first 2 games was Gabriel and Allen that was talked about a lot, but then I've not seen either name in any sort of Twitter wildcard screenshots.
Exactly. Okay, Dan, you have some ownership stats. Would you like to share?
Yeah, so jotted all these down for the week. So Son, he wasn't actually he was most transferred out because he was injured last week, and then I think it was Mourinho, and he said he was going to be out for a while. So he was in 10% of teams last Sunday. Starter today, he was in 4.71. So he's took a big, that's a lot of teams he's gone out of. And everyone who's took him out has been stitched up, really, haven't they? Because that did seem like he was going to be out. So I think a lot of people would have took him out, wouldn't they, on the Monday if they could for Mane or something. It's just that's a nightmare. That is really a nightmare. Salah went up 3% from 29% up to 32%. Mane, he's gone out of a lot, obviously, from 18% last week down to 12%. Thought he might have gone down more actually, but maybe people just couldn't be bothered. Calvert-Lewin was in 8.8 last weekend on the Sunday, and he's gone up to 18% as of today, so 10% jump there. Werner has been gradually dropping, 21% last week, down to 18% this week. He ain't going anywhere near my Overhaul team.
Really?
Sick of him. Nah, had enough of him. Vardy, he went up 17% to 21%, so that's a 4% increase. But yeah, saying the main ones out this week was Son. Thiago, I was surprised how many teams he was in. He was in like 5% of teams. He's gone down to just under 2. Alan was another popular transferred out. And the other main ones in was James Rodriguez, I was a bit gutted when you see how many points he got Saturday. And yeah, Harvey Barnes has been brought into quite a few teams as well, to nearly 3%. So yeah, he's just in the 8% of teams now. So that was the main movers really. But the most annoying one must be Son, because I think a lot of people have been stitched up with that. So and punished today. So that's unfortunate.
That Manny stat's crazy, I think. Like, I know you said that you thought it would go down more, but we're saying that 6% of all players in the game made a transfer this week for one game.
Yeah.
6% of all players.
Well, he was in... So Monday morning, he was in 18% of teams. He'd gone up to 19% by Friday, and then he's down to 12% today. So he'd been brought in during the week. So...
for one game, obviously.
Mad, isn't
the
it?
Overhaul. And people will have had the captaincy days covered probably as well.
So yeah, crazy. Do you want me to go through the transfers as well? The average transfers remaining?
Oh, yeah, you might as well. What are you there, Dan?
Yeah, so top 10 average remaining is 28 transfers. Crazy. Top 100 was 30. The top 1,000 was 33.1. And the top 5,000 was 34.6. So like we say, everyone always says, how many... my position and this, that, and the other. Like when you see those transfer stats, just don't worry, because as long as you've got more than that, which you should have, you're going to be okay. So just don't worry about position now.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Jen. Some really, really informative stuff there. So thank you, everyone on Twitter who replied in terms of our topics for this evening. So our topics are, what have we learned? So this is the first thing. So kind of looking at the first 4 weeks, what can we take away other than this season is the most unpredictable season I have certainly ever seen, from in terms of football and fantasy as well. Secondly, fixtures, what we know. So what do we know moving forward after the Overhaul? What fixtures be confirmed? What days do we need the captaincies for? And third, we're going to look at bankers and enablers. So firstly, for what have we learned then? If people could again comment in the chat on what's the one thing that you are going to take away from pre-Overhaul into post Overhaul. And with that, I will go to you first, Paul. In terms of learning, so what have you learned going into this new part of the season?
So, kind of touching on the point that you made about the trends changing week on week, which it has done. I think it's even more important to have a flexible setup in your team.
Yeah.
So, and by this, I'm not going to use the 4.9 million enablers in my team because if they get dropped, I'm going to have to use 2 transfers and be flexible because there's going to be players that I want every week. And if a player has one bad game, seen to be injured, not make the move straight away and perhaps assess it. Now, I guess you could argue that if we had done that with Werner in the first game, that we would all be in a better state than perhaps we are on those that held on to him. But I think that more often than not, it would work the other way around. So yeah, having a flexible team and not using dead positions that are there and wouldn't be able to switch on to somebody else.
Yeah, really good shout there. And Dan, what have you learned so far?
This season's going to be mental. Yeah, I think what Paul said, really just sort of keep some sort of flexibility. I think I'm just so unsure about all these transfers and the fixtures and how much we're all going to change. And I still we're probably not going to get in more than 3 weeks in advance, are we? So I'm just going to try to, like as Paul said, keep everyone at a price point where you can get onto someone else. So if they throw up a random, we've had Burnley, Newcastle, but if they throw up a game like that, really, you can easy enough get in someone if you want to, rather than not being able to. So I think you're having a flexible team like the 3-5-2 that can go to a 3-4-3 or something like that, really. But it's just, I just don't know, really. As crazy it is at the minute, I sort of think I just want to pick just some sort of steady-ish sort of team until things calm down a bit. And like I said, because things change, like I said, Friday, everyone was talking about Jimenez and this, that, and the other. Then Saturday's James, and today, then it's Son. Like, it's just changes all the time, doesn't it? Like, now everyone's sort of saying not going to have any Liverpool defenders, and I still wouldn't feel comfortable with that. Actually, if Alisson's going to be out for a while, then maybe you can get away with not having any Liverpool defenders. But it just seems so weird, and no one's even talking about like any Man City players, are they? Like at the minute, like there's probably a case for going without De Bruyne or Fernandes, but that just seems so risky, doesn't it? So I don't know, really. It's just such, you could probably pick a team with about 10 million in the bank, I think, really, if you have like Calvert-Lewin and Watkins, Grealish, all these sort of players like that you wouldn't actually have any big hitters. So it's very confusing.
Indeed. Mark Daniels agrees with you in the chat. Absolutely. Won't be going with him until Alisson is back. Obviously talking about Van Dijk and Thomas Hartnell, Reece Bloomer, and a couple of others, Bear and Peter G, talk about penalty takers as being, they're kind of one of their really big factors. And Bear also says, I've learned that I'll be having an early grave if game weeks carry on like this. First time chat from Phil Hurst. Very, very welcome, Phil. First time watching. I only had 7 players, including VVD -2, and lucked in with 80s. I don't think we can rely on clean sheets. Some players are must-have. DCL and Rodriguez look superb. Son looks good also. I would say about Son just looks a completely different player this season. He's almost Salah-esque, in the way that he's getting all the chances. His finishing as well. His finishing has been absolutely incredible. He's a very unselfish player as well. Seems to be playing, lots of minutes as well. In most games at 10.1. I'm not sure at the moment there's maybe a better value sort of player in the game, but in terms of what we learned, I think we mentioned, we kind of mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Empty stadiums, I believe, lead to games being, treated almost like a training session almost. We've talked about handballs for penalties, but we've had a few more penalties this weekend, but I don't believe any of them have been for handball. I may be slightly wrong there, but I think they've all been for foul. So I'm not, again, things like, the penalties, it's not all down to this new handball rule. There are being more penalties due to potentially, attackers getting better, defenders being sloppy, whatever it may be. We're just seeing more and more penalties, constantly all the time. So the thing on the penalty takers, I completely agree with. In terms of teams to look at as well, early doors, I think instead of focusing purely, as we normally would, on teams like Liverpool, Man City and Man United, as etc., which probably at the start of the season, if you were to say, who are the teams you'll be focusing on at the Overhaul, it would probably be those, sorts of teams. You've got teams like Everton, for example, who've just blown all that completely out of the water. Tottenham today look absolutely magnificent. And we know from a couple of seasons ago, when Tottenham get going, they can be unstoppable and they can be absolutely fantastic as well. Kane scores lots of points even when he's not playing well. So, when he's playing well, as he's proved again this season so far, he got the points. And even teams like Leeds, there's players like Bamford, we've mentioned Click, we've mentioned Dallas, Harrison, all these players are potentially options as well. I think another thing is not to rage out. So, anyone who's got rid of Son, I've got to be honest, I think if I would have had Son, because he said he's pulled his hamstring, he's going to be out for a month, I may have done the same. Fortunately, I didn't have Son, but I feel, very, very sorry for those people, even though the advice on this pod was to not use your subs, kind of, leave them and stuff. But those who stuck with Saint-Maximin, just as an example, who took him out, even though, he only had a niggle, he punished those who did as well with I think he had a 14-pointer yesterday.
We did say not to take out ASM, didn't we? Because I'm pretty sure that we said you could just switch him out for Alan, who would probably get you 10 points over the 2 games, but it probably weren't worth it, was it, for the cost of a transfer? And it turned out that Alan got injured, didn't even get any bonus, and then didn't play again. And It's just the way it is. But I'm pretty sure that we said don't bother.
The same with Tierney as well.
Yeah.
And they're roughly about the same price.
Yeah, I kept Tierney.
Yeah, in terms of transfers and kind of using the transfers, I think it's using them to get in those players when you really need them, and not just someone who's got a niggle. It's not FPL where you've got your bench, you get your free transfer every week. It's a very, very different game. And if things continue as they are, if things continue as they are with no crowds, and we see the same kind of thing we had last year, at the end where there's games all the time, different game days, you're gonna need those transfers at the end, and they can be so valuable, as Liam Dorrian, who won, found out.
Fergie, see on your teams for post Overhaul, Brighton play a lot of the teams that give up a lot of possession. So any players like Ben White, Adam Webster, Basuma are all likely to pick up passing bonus in those games.
Good. That's a nice shout there, Paul. Thanks for that. Just kind of while we're on that as well, I think there's potentially a lot of good cheap options who are not just good, because of the price. I think they're good anyway. So I think you've touched on them, Paul, in players like Dallas, Hoberg, potentially even Lamptey. There's a lot of players who I think are quite cheap in their own right. Antonio is probably another one. He's cheap in his own right. He's not just, don't just get him in, as like an enabler. We're getting them in because they're actually really good players and scoring as many points as anyone else as well. So I think that's another one. And the last thing I'd maybe say is, because we're getting late notice on fixtures, and I think someone in the chat mentioned this last week, I think it's a really good idea actually, is to maybe spread your players across teams should be potentially a factor. I'm not saying that should be one of the first things to think about, but if you've got a 50-50, so let's just say, just as an example, you've got, I don't know, you've already got Calvert-Lewin, and then you're tossing up between Rodriguez and someone from like another team, a similar to, and you're really, really unsure. I potentially think going for the other team is a factor, because we're only getting 2 or 3 weeks fixtures in advance, which means that it can hopefully help to to cover off a fixture in the future. So I think they're the things which we didn't have a clue about at the start of the game, but which we have to adapt to. So they're mine. So moving on to our second topic, which is about the fixtures and what we know. So firstly, it's probably very important actually to talk about Ian Parrin's tweets, which he put. So it's on screen for those who are watching on YouTube. So when playing Overhaul teams, we need to be aware of probable further fixture changes. So just so everyone knows, the Sky game weeks 6, 7 and 8, which are the 3 weeks now after the international break, have all been planned out by the Premier League and on the Sky Sports fantasy site. But according to Ian, there will be more changes because there's going to be no crowds in. There will likely be more, so don't hang your hat on those fixtures. So he says it looks like there must be work going on behind the scenes, re-TV scheduling of all matches. If not, then Arsenal v Leicester in game week 7 and Tottenham v Brighton in game week 8 might have already been moved to one of the Sunday slots. So while you can plan, it's probably a good idea just to have that in mind. And Dan and Paul, I think we're all expecting the fixtures to change to a very similar schedule to kind of what's on now. This kind of on a Saturday, 12:30, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and the same on the Sunday. And on the Monday, I'm very surprised we haven't seen a Friday evening game yet. I'm not sure.
Oh God, mate, don't.
Kind of why that is, but I'm quite surprised
they're the worst.
Spreading them. Yeah, I agree.
They're the worst because you can't get the extra. Like, if a Monday game comes up where you don't have a player in that game, and you want to use a transfer, you can at least transfer a player that's already played that week. But the Friday game doesn't allow for it. So.
I know it won't happen, but that, like the Saturday the 17th, if they move one to the Friday, what if they move like the Sheffield United Fulham or West Brom Burnley to the Friday night? Like, can you imagine that? Are you going to have one of them players in your team? It's just going to be. But like I said, that first Saturday, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 games for the 3 o'clock on Saturday. Well, there isn't, is there? They're not going to be. They're going to be all spread out, aren't they? So, like I say, one of them could move to the Friday. I might not because of international break, but I just think they're all going to move about, aren't they? We'll probably end up with 2 on a Monday. I should think, won't we? 1 at 6, 1 at 8.
Yeah, this is what's been happening, which means those 8 o'clock games, which we feel we might get the lineups for, we probably won't. So what I've done for our YouTube viewers, I've grabbed these Sunday and Monday games, which are currently planned in, because these are the ones we need to think about in terms of captaincies. So Sunday the 18th of October, you've got Palace versus Brighton and Spurs versus West Ham. And on the Monday, we've got Leeds against Wolves. On Sunday the 25th, we've got Southampton, Everton, Wolves v Newcastle, and on the Monday night, Burnley and Tottenham. And on Sunday the 1st of November, Newcastle, Everton, Man United versus Arsenal. And then on the Monday the 2nd, we've got Leeds versus Leicester. So these are the only confirmed fixtures we've had so far for those Sundays and Mondays. So coming to you, Paul, in terms of kind of planning for captaincies, etc., for these games and for these days, what are your thoughts in terms of the kind of players we're going to need?
A Leeds player is a must, and that's why I think Dallas is like a perfect foil, 6.44 million. But we've talked about all the Leeds assets. There's a multitude. There's plenty of options in that area. And if no fixtures were to change the dates, then we'd obviously need a Spurs asset for the Burnley game on the Monday night in the second week. So Kane or Son or Højbjerg's turning over the points, but with how many chances Burnley are conceding, I think you would want one of the Spurs. You'd want one of the Spurs attackers. They seem to be making so many changes at the back that you probably avoid Spurs defenders, and Doherty's probably as disappointed those that have started off with them in the season.
Indeed. Okay.
Yeah, so Spurs, Leeds, and then perhaps Wolves and Everton would be the other two teams. Everton play on both the Sundays of the weeks after, and Wolves, you could have a Wolves player as an alternative to the Leeds player on the first Monday. And they play on the Sunday the second week at home in Newcastle as well. So Jimenez could be a good shout in there.
Cool, thanks for that. Dan, have you spotted anything else, or do you agree with Paul that Leeds?
Just everything that, everything that Paul said. Really, like I said, I am worried about teams who have started off well. Do you think, is that going to be it? But and especially with Everton, I really do like Everton. I like Ancelotti. Like I think he's got them going now. So I think James and Calvert-Lewin are going to be solid picks. You wouldn't touch, with Pickford still, unless they sign Romero or someone, you're not going to touch any Everton defenders or the keeper, are you? But have those two, James and Calvert-Lewin should be all right. But Paul said, really, I try to avoid newly promoted teams, but the way Leeds are going, it does look like you're going to be hard to avoid picking them. But I do tend to avoid them, really. But yeah, I just don't know, really. It's just looking at the fixtures. Hopefully we'll get something this week that they've changed, because then you can, just feels a bit like I say, because you think, we want Jimenez for the Wolves games, but then if there's another game on, he never really cuts it for me. He gets one goal, doesn't he? And that seems to be about his lot. So that's the only thing I don't really like about him. But if they've got the fixtures you need him for, you're going to have him in. But that's what I did with Werner. That's why I had Werner in, because they had the Monday night game against West Brom, was it? Or no, whatever month they played, didn't they? And it was I had to have a Chelsea player. So then you end up having a player for 4 weeks for one captaincy, and you don't really want them in your team apart from that. So, yeah.
I still think, though, I think at the start, Werner, I know it seems a lifetime ago now, and I know it sounds not stupid because it's easy in hindsight, right? But Werner was a banker in all our teams at the start, absolute banker for his pedigree and the fixtures and the captaincy on the Monday night. So you just can't beat yourself up about it. It's just, it didn't work. Move on. He got a few points. I think he got shooting bonus when I captained him in one of the games, I think, so he went from 4 to 8, but, just kind of move on. Dan, is a bit of chat around Son versus Kane. Who would your money be on at the moment if you were to pick between them? Or is there even a case for them both? Because their fixtures are absolutely crazy as well. And Son is the same price as an expensive defender or a medium-priced mid. What are your thoughts?
I probably won't have both. I'll probably split them between the teams, so I'll have one in each team. But I don't know, you've got to factor in how much cheaper Son is. Son seems to be the one who's making all the runs and getting on the end of everything, doesn't he? Whereas Kane's good for pens and stuff. I just don't know really.
I think that one-on-one earlier he missed as well because his finishing's been incredible, but that was arguably his easiest chance, wasn't it?
Son's one of them ones like every time I have him, he lets me down. So
that's a red.
Yeah, or something like that, really. But yeah, they're both good options. Obviously, Son's cheaper and more sort of explosive, I suppose. But yeah, I will probably have one in each team just to cover myself, so I can then go on Twitter and post a picture when I've captained either one of them and say, yeah, or like.
So who? You know. So who's your main pick? Who'll be going in your A team? Kane or Son? One word.
Probably Kane. He's my.
He's go-to man.
Yeah.
And you, Paul? Kane or Son?
Yeah, I've got the same relationship with Son that Dan does, so Kane will be in my team.
Okay, cool. And in terms of Leeds players, so Paul, you mentioned Dallas at the moment is probably your Leeds player of choice. Dan, who's your Leeds go-to player, as it stands?
I'm really trying to avoid him, but yeah, Dallas or Ayling, was it? Yeah. One of them two.
What would have been interesting is if Dallas had been sent off yesterday, because that tackle at the end was
he should have been sent off.
Tackle, yeah.
And that would have changed things. Like at the Overhaul, obviously, if he's suspended for the first couple of games, whether people would have went Ayling or a default attacking Leeds option, maybe, I don't. Yeah.
Okay. And Dan, who is your kind of Wolves option at the moment? If you had to pick one.
I say Jimenez is the one, but like I said, whenever I have sort of had him, he only seems to get a goal, and is it worth it? Podence, we discussed, was a good price when he
6.6,
really good price for a midfielder playing like advanced. So he's a midfielder in Sky, and he's
he's on.
Yeah, I don't know really.
He's on corners and free kicks when Moutinho was off the pitch as well, I think, which is quite interesting. He took some corners yesterday before he came off for Moutinho, I think that was the case.
For me, ideally, I wouldn't have any Wolves, but it's just a captaincy, whether I'd bring them in for a couple of games and shift them out again, something like that. But I'd rather have Calvert-Lewin, Kane and Salah, something like that.
Of course. And Paul, Wolves never done picks. Who are your two kind of picks for those teams at the moment?
Yeah, well, I'm genuinely considering going no Liverpool defence and playing Salah, Kane and Jimenez up front with Rodriguez in midfield. I think Rodriguez and Calvert-Lewin both are great shouts, and along with Allen as well, who we obviously said was flavour of the month a couple of weeks ago and seems to be forgotten about slightly now.
That's what I think. That's what makes me more want to go towards Allen, because a lot of people, if they're like just looking at the points totals, these won't be high, will they? And he's gone sort of off the radar. So I think he'd be a good shout coming back that not many people will have.
There's been a couple of shouts in the chat for Patricio in goals as potential Wolves option, and Semedo, the right back, who he was a whisker away from scoring earlier, and he had another shot. He looked very, very attacking, so he could potentially be a good option, even though I think he's around, I want to say 8.5. I may have that wrong, but I think he was around that. But
so is he 7.8? I think he's 7.8, isn't he?
Oh, is he? I thought I thought it was.
It might be wrong. Better. Someone will let us know.
They will. So on to our final topic then, and this is bankers and enablers. So Dan, at the moment, who are your bankers? Can you be three names who will definitely be in your overhaul team no matter what?
I could probably give you about 6. Kane, Salah, probably Calvert-Lewin. You just wanted 3, didn't you?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Kane, Salah, and Calvert-Lewin. And how about you, Paul?
I've got 4, so I'm going against your question. But Dallas, KDB, Salah, and Kane. Okay. I'll definitely be in my team. Everywhere else is kind of up for grabs.
Fantastic. Okay, I think mine. I think I've thought a bit more. Oh no, I haven't. I've had them the wrong way around. My bankers and neighbours the other way around. So I've got Kane or Son. I've got KDB. I wrote down Robertson, but it's easy off the back of a really heavy defeat to think, oh no, but Robertson is generally a very good pick. He generally matches Van Dijk for output as well, generally speaking, and he's about 0.8 cheaper. And I had Rodriguez as well because I think he's I think Rodriguez is quite cheap for for what he brings, and he also allows you then I think as you mentioned earlier, Paul, not to have Calvert-Lewin up front, to have Rodriguez instead. And in terms of enablers then, so I've only kind of written down they're very boring. We've kind of mentioned most of them already, but I think Antonio at 8 million is actually, he's a kind of enabler. I think he's cheap. He looked fantastic again today. West Ham's fixtures from game week 9, I think, in Sky onwards are sensational. I wrote down Dallas as well. I got Lamptey. Even though Brighton have looked good and Lamptey has looked sharp, they do concede quite a lot of goals, is the only thing I would say. So he has won 2 penalties, which have boosted up his points. I'm not sure how sustainable that is, though. He's tackling. He's an awesome player, but just because he's a fantastic player, and he's very cheap, doesn't necessarily mean that he'd be a good pick in Sky. But that's up to everyone to make that up. And Højbjerg, for me, I watched him earlier against Man United. He sat in between Dyer and Sanchez earlier. He kind of dropped right in between and was just literally passing the ball back and forth between them all. He's going to get passing bonus a lot, I think, against the lesser teams. I thought his assist actually for Aurier's goal was actually a fantastic pass as well.
It was a good ball.
And he didn't get anything for tackles either, and he's normally a bit of a beast there. And I think a 7.4. I think he'd be very, very reliable source of points without the kind of thing of having minus points for being a defender as well. So, he could maybe be that fourth defender which you're looking at, but obviously in midfield. So they're the ones I'm looking at. Dan, have you got any cheapies for us?
I said before, but all the ones you just talked about, really, like Lamptey, like I said, I suppose I'll have to go for Dallas because everyone else will be having him. And like I said, if you're going for, if you are going to not have Van Dijk, Robertson, you're going to get a cheap keeper in. You don't need too many. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so many good price players in there, Hammers, Calvert-Lewin, and you can get them all in. But no, so I think just Dallas or Lamptey. You're going to need a couple of them cheap ones in, but I wouldn't be going like dirt cheap. Like people were talking about that Mitchell of Palace, whether he's going to keep his spot and this, that, and the other. But if you're on him, that you then, how do you get off him if he falls out of the team and stuff like that? So no, I think just go with the most selected sort of cheaper picks. You can't really go wrong.
Peter G says Pulisic after Overhaul. It's a really good shout. He's 9.4. I do wonder, and I'm going to get a world of abuse for this, right? But I've kept Werner in FPL, and one of the reasons is I think when Pulisic is back, that Pulisic is going to play on that left-hand side, and Werner will go back up front now. I'm not saying to have Werner in Overhaul, but, before you all go absolutely mad. But I do think we'll see a different Werner after Overhaul. Is kind of what I'm saying with Pulisic at best. With Pulisic back, he's so dynamic. He's so direct, and Zaya to be back as well. I think there'll be a bit of a different beast. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Werner score some points after.
That's a shame we've not had a game to see him all play. That is it before the Overhaul, because at the minute I don't want to touch any. I saw someone had put what Chelsea played do you have? I was like, I wouldn't have any of them really. But you never know, and that's probably the thing as well. They'll start again over the Overhaul. Werner will be up top and he'll be banging the goals, and it's like,
I think Reece James is finished now as well, because not so much that Azpilicueta is an immense player for them, although he has been a brilliant servant. But I think that you saw the situation with the penalty, with the argument going on, and having a leader on the park like Azpilicueta enhances everybody else around him. So I think that he's going to play a lot more now. So and Chilwell kind of looks nailed on the left, so it might mean that Reece James misses out more often than he starts now.
Sure. Lawless 88 and Glenn Murray both say Semedo 7.8. That is actually quite a decent price, 7.8. Yeah, that looks good. Andrew Patterson says Lamptey. He's had tough fixtures with Man United, Everton, and Chelsea. That's that's a fair point. So they've had 3 out of their 4 have been tough games. Peter Scolding Armstrong could be a good enabler, assister. Yeah, so obviously he got injured, didn't he, in the lead up to game week 1, because he was in everyone's sides at 7.1, I think. But he could be a decent one as well. And Mark Daniels says Tellez might be a decent point scorer for Man United, though at the moment, I personally think that while Maguire is in that team, where is it?
Hayes and goals.
While Maguire is in that team, I probably wouldn't go anywhere near Man United, but that's just a personal preference. Okay, so on to some final questions then. We had some really, really good ones this week as usual. Thank you everyone who sent in some questions. So question from Brownie. So I think we may have answered this actually. So optimal setup, fixture dependent. He says 3-4-3 has long dominated as the formation of choice for recent years. Mid-player options this year have proven efficient with good returns. With that being said, would you advise managers take advantage of 3-5-2 formation post overhauls? I think we've kind of answered this. I think we're saying, flexible at the moment, looking at a 3-4-3, but potentially that third striker spot could take you into a 3-5-2 or a 4-4-2. And to Paul's point, we need a flexible formation this year because it's going to be a tough year. With the spike in COVID as well is just starting to take off. We saw obviously Mane this week. Who knows kind of what's going to happen? Who knows in terms of short term? Who knows in terms of fixture rearrangements and whatever else? So flexible. I probably wouldn't move to a 5-3-2. I think is probably the only thing I wouldn't say. Both from the fact that there's no clean sheets and it's very, very difficult then to move quickly to a 3-4-3. Question off Tom Hartnell for you guys. Goalkeeper is proving a really tricky position to nail down in his Overhaul team. He's thinking McCarthy, who's good on budget and clean sheets. What do you guys think? Paul, can I come to you? Goalkeeper.
I'm thinking of going Meslier from Leeds, 6.1. One of, if not the cheapest starting goalie. Bielsa likes him. They kept 7 clean sheets. I know everyone's got the concept, and quite rightly so, for the amount of chances that they give up. But he picked up saves bonus in the first 3 games. We know from last season that Dubravka was around the top scoring goalkeeper based on the number of saves that he was making. So I'm thinking of going Meslier, but there is plenty of options. Patricio, somebody mentioned earlier on, 6.9. It's good cover for Wolves, who have good fixtures. Matt Ryan, as I said earlier, Brighton's got really nice fixtures. I can't remember how much he is. McCarthy, 6.6. Martinez at Aston Villa, 6.3. There's loads of options. I think Martinez will probably be the most picked goalkeeper. I'm thinking of going Meslier for 6.1.
Well, thank you, Paul. And how about you, Dan?
Yeah, I've had McCarthy in goal, so someone like him would do. You're not going to pick Edison, are you? I don't think. Obviously, Allison's going to be out. You're not going for Adrian. So I think just save a bit of money. Pick whatever cheap keeper you get. I don't think there's going to be too much points between them, but just pick one and stick with him. Because I always say there's no point in subbing around your goalkeepers and stuff like that. Just pick one and stick with it. Because I think they're all going to be pretty similar points-wise, really.
Agree.
Dan, the year you won, you didn't make any goalkeeper transfers, and that was without overhauls as well. I'm sure you told me.
Yeah, I think
that as well.
That was 4 years ago. I can't remember now. I think I did keep the same because we didn't have overhaul. So, I can't remember who the keeper was now. Let's reread my article. But I'm certain I kept the same keeper all season.
Tom Heaton, maybe something like that.
Yeah, that was Heaton, wasn't it? Yeah, because then the next season had him, and then Pope came in. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had Tom Heaton all season.
Lodders88 says Guaita, good option post overhaul, and Gio Boys, Chelsea's new goalkeeper, a good shout. So obviously, they've signed.
How much is he?
Men's
seven, I think.
Same as Lloris, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
It's only 0.1 more than Patricio, who everyone's looking at.
Question from Owen Jones. So, what do you guys think is a reasonable rank if you had all your transfers remaining? I am down to 14k now, not used a transfer, and it feels okay. And how many and how many points is each transfer worth? So I think 14k, no transfers used, is very, very good. If you consider there's about, what is there now, between 350 and 500,000 players in the game, you're probably in the top 5% or more of all players without using any transfers. So that's really, really good. How many points is each transfer worth? Would you say?
Dan and I had somebody asked us on one of the WhatsApp chats recently. Because it's hard to put a gauge on it. I think we've kind of always said like 12 to 15 points, something like that. But it depends if you use them linearly across the season, because if you use them all at the start of the season and pick up your 12 and 15 points for the transfers and get to the last 8 games and don't have any left, I value transfers more at that stage. Like if you go back to what you mentioned about Liam when he won it last year,
exactly.
having a good transfer count going into that area of the season, he picked up hundreds of points from that. So if you were to use them sensibly, like averaging less than one a week, I would value them at 15 points a transfer.
Cool, great stuff. Thank you. FPL Heavyweight and Sky FF says best Monday night cover to get during Overhaul. Is there a different option to get in Kane? So I think we've all said Kane. Though I got to be honest. Well, with the fixtures and the form, I'm not massively averse to go in Kane and Son, to be honest. But obviously we've got a fortnight now to kind of think about that. But I think Kane is probably our number one, shot. He's good for shots bonus. He's on penalties, anyway. So, but no, good question. And Heskebo Sky FF, best way to cover Chelsea on Overhaul, or do we just ignore them? So we touched on this earlier. So I personally think if I was to have a Chelsea player, I would be tempted by Pulisic, I would say, just in terms of value. I think he's 9.4. I think he'll get some attacking returns. I think he's probably good for a couple of man of the match as well. He's got that kind of aggressive, attractive play, which they seem to like when picking man of the match. Dan, anyone from Chelsea at the moment?
Yeah, like I said, Pulisic, he's 9.1. They've actually
he's
took him
0.1,
down
is he?
in price.
All right.
They took him down. I forget how much he was last season, but they dropped him probably nearly $1 million or something, which when I saw the prices, just thought, what?
That is cheap.
So he probably is a good pick, because I say a lot of people who don't listen to this, he might not be on the radar, because they'll look at the points people have got and they'll be looking at Grealish and James and stuff like that, and they'll be off the radar. But if he's fit when the restart, if he's fit to go, I think he could be good picks. And to say he's a good price, just at like 0.3 more than Rodriguez. So even if you don't start with him, you could move on to him or something like that. But yeah, no, he's the only one I'd be looking at. I really don't like Chelsea defensively. I think it's such a shame Jorginho takes the penalties. I hate when it's a sort of, not someone who scores regular, in a match, doesn't take him, so it's a bit of a waste. But
I was absolutely agonising on the rage. I was driving yesterday, and they won both penalties while I was in the car. And it said, "Oh, they've won the penalty," and I was wondering, because I think I had Werner, in all of them, in Sky and FPL and TFF and everything. I was, come on, Werner, and obviously Jorginho took the first one. And then they said they were all arguing for the second one, and they were saying, "Oh, and he's taking it off him." And I was like, "Oh, and turned out it was Abraham, and obviously Aspilicueta took it out of Abraham's hands and he's giving it to Jorginho." And all the time, I'm just thinking, please, just any kind of return whatsoever. But it wasn't to be, obviously. But like I say, I do expect Werner to do a bit better after Overhaul, as he settles down as well.
What's your guys' thoughts on Bruno post Overhaul? Because I'm looking at the fixtures. So they're away to Newcastle on the first Saturday. They play Chelsea then on the Saturday. Then they play Arsenal at home, but Everton play on that day. And then they play away to Everton. So that's the 4 weeks before the next international break. Now, at 10.9, am I going to captain him in any of those 4 games? Probably not. He is in my draft that I knocked up this afternoon, but I wouldn't be adverse to going without him. What's your guys' thoughts?
I think if you're not going to captain him, I think there is, merit in going for someone like Son, as we just mentioned, who's got potential much more upside than Bruno has. Maybe someone like Pulisic, one of these more exciting ones who we've mentioned. But you say that, but you also know then he's a bit of a guaranteed transfer in at 10.9 million. are you going to have a placeholder? Because if you think we're probably likely going to have something along the lines of Kane, Salah, De Bruyne, potentially Van Dijk or not, but they'll probably be the only 4 around that price. It kind of means not only you're booking in a transfer, but you're probably going to have to find friends from somewhere to get him in as well. So at the moment, actually, I don't really know. I know it's a bit of a cop out, but at the moment I'm not sure, because I'm trying to be a lot more reserved with transfers this year than I was last year. And as he's also proven in the last 2, he hasn't played well either. He played a game and a half, and he's got a penalty in both games as well. So he's always on for those points. It doesn't matter if he deserves them or not. He gets the points. So, what do you think, Dan?
It's what I was thinking about in the week, right? Because I know, I put the captaincy polls up on Twitter. I didn't do one today because there was just so many options. You could have picked any of about 10, couldn't you? So, do you know what I mean? I just don't know. Like I say, when I won it, there was nothing really going for Sky, was there, sort of thing. So I'm just basically on my own and talk to Paul and a few of our other mates and stuff. But I'd always know what I was going to do, who I was going to captain, and then I'd see what they were doing. But now I think I'm more fearful of things like, saying about not having Bruno, and I'm like, he is going to be so highly owned. It's a massive risk not having him in your team, because if he does well, then I didn't have him towards the end of last season, and just killed my rank week after week. So now I play with a bit of fear, and I'm like, I've got to have him just because everyone else has him. That's like when you see a captaincy poll, and you might be thinking, I had a few people who messaged me yesterday, they were thinking of going, I don't think they said that, but they were thinking of going someone else, saw De Bruyne was the most captained, and they switched to him. It's like, well, actually, if you'd have stuck with what you actually thought, you'd have done all right, but you sort of sometimes think people get a bit worried. So what I'm saying is I probably will have him, but I don't know, it just feels to me so risky not having a player that's so highly owned. Who said who in a game and a half has still scored in both of them, and he'd be happy with his 8 points or whatever today.
And it only takes United to switch on their form, which they can do in an instant, right? And then you need to get him in, and then and then you've got a problem. So, okay, so an update on our podcast 11. So after last night, we were at 33k. I think we've used. Can't remember. I think we might have used one transfer, or maybe even none. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to check on that. But we've scored 58 points this game. We had McCarthy in goal this game week. We had Gomez for -2. We had Van Dijk as captain for the -4. So I did put all these polls out on Twitter. We had De Bruyne yesterday for 8 points. We did have Antonio for 11, but I believe he's got man of the match, so he'll probably end up with 14. Soucek 4, Fernandez 8, Kane 18, who had man of the match as well, I think. So he got to 21. So actually, it's 64 points for our podcast team. You'd hope there for a bit of an increase. So actually, going into the overhaul, we've actually got a nice team there. We will have. What am I trying to say? We will have a nice basis to work from in terms of a decent start in terms of overall rank, and I think we got 40 transfers in the bank there. I may be wrong, but I think we have. What we'll do next week, we will pick the podcast Overhaul 11 next Sunday live on this channel at this time. So make sure you join us for that. So finally then, looking at 2 of our mini leagues. So this is our Hub £500 league. So in 10th place, Kevin Quinn on 339 points. This is as of last night as well. So obviously they haven't updated from today's games, but Kevin Quinn, 339. Richard Riley in 9th place. Chloe Stevens in 8th place. Matthew Chan, I think, in 7th place. Oliver Colgan in 6th. John McEwen in 5th. Benjamin Lee in 4th. Christopher Forbes in 3rd. David Caulfield in 2nd. Corf FPL, who is a fellow Welshman, I believe. And Katie O'Neill absolutely smashing it on 390 points. And this was before today, so she's 35 points ahead of 2nd place into today's games with her bang average team. So very well done there, Katie. I did notice as well, actually, that Tim Barry was 11th in this, so he is right up there. In terms of our Four Nations League, in 8th place we've got the reigning champion Liam, Dorrian, again, this was of last night, in 7th place. We've got the Sky podcast team in 7th, but obviously he's had a decent day today, so hopefully that will go up. Dan Cox, Fantasy Football Hub, is in 6th place. Paul McAnulty 5th, Liam, Dorrian 4th, Paul McAnulty's other team in 3rd, Dan Cox 2nd, and I'm currently top just by a couple of points. I think actually I've had a decent day today as well. I was having a bit of a nightmare because I took out Kane for Salah, but captained Salah today, so that's got me Kane's points back. So pretty decent there in the end. So finally, before we go, Dan's rant. Dan, what has upset you this week?
I ain't really got anything, to be honest. That Villa scoring 7 goals pissed me off quite a lot. Like, I just hate Villa. Do you know what I mean? So that's annoyed me. But no, I haven't really got a lot. No, what does annoy me actually, Twitter, that I've only got like 2,800 followers. Should have more than that. There's like FPL people who are like shit at fantasy football. They've got like 30,000. So that annoys me. And there's a cat who lives near me who's got more followers. So follow me on that would be Andy. Don't follow the cat just to piss me off. But no, I'm pretty chilled. I was all right. Nearly killed myself this week, but I'm all right, really.
Do you want to embellish more on that, Dan? I'm sure everyone's interested.
Well, that was raining, right? So I got a waterproof jacket. So I just got back to my car and I was soaked. I was driving home, and because it's bloody raining, you have to the heat on, don't you? So I had all the heat on, so you can't see out. Then I was getting hot. I still had the jacket on, so it's probably ain't good listening. But I was driving down the old dual carriageway, tried to take my jacket off. I done a bloody planes, trains, and automobiles.
Brilliant.
I got my coat stuck. And then I was like, Jesus Christ, I had to drive on my knees. And I managed to sort it out in the end, but I was like, Christ, I'm going to die. That was my birthday the weekend. I'm like, I'm not going to die before my birthday. How annoying is that? So if you are driving at speed, take your coat off before you get in your car. Because, that went pretty good. But no, apart from that, just Aston Villa, just piss off. Just don't need 7 goals against when I've captain Van Dijk. So, no, that's it for me.
Lance Harrington, Wayne Rooney not annoyed you this week, Dan, he says?
Not really fussed about Norwich, mate, to be honest. We're selling all... Do you know what's annoying me? Why we're selling all our players? Godfrey to Everton for 30 million, good price. Jamal Lewis, he went to Newcastle. Barcelona Barcelona annoy me because they basically want to have Max Aarons on a free for the season to see if he's any good without giving us any money, and they won't commit to buying him. So Barcelona can piss off, but... Yeah, Norwich, mate, just no ambition ever. He's selling everyone and mid-table championship, and that's it. We've got loads of money from selling everyone, and that's all they care about.
Okay, and
Campbell's maybe going to Leeds as well.
Yeah, that would annoy me as well.
And a very happy birthday, Dan. Obviously, could everyone in the chat guess how old Dan is before we go? While I run through the end credits. But obviously, a very happy birthday, Dan. You've made another year, mate. Congratulations.
Yeah, still alive. Yeah, happy
still
with
alive.
that.
That's what it's all about. So thank you so much, as usual, everyone, for supporting and interacting with us on this live stream. One favour, could everyone please like the podcast? So again, we've still only got about half the amount of likes that we have live watch at this moment. Could everyone please like it? It really does help us, guys. And could everyone retweet the podcast when we tweet it out either later tonight or tomorrow morning? We're getting some guesses here. Martin Beasley, 32. Saif Ali, 43. Mark Daniels, 50. Jonathan Maloney, 38. Matt Bell, 38. Bear, 40. Bob Tomlinson, 38. And 39, right. 37.
I'm going to listen back to this, right? I'm going to listen back to this, and the names you said, I'm going to find them on Twitter. You're getting blocked.
Peter G, 38. If Twitter handle is to go by. So I think 38 about right, is it, Dan?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you know what the upsetting thing is? Paul's only 2 years younger than me or something. Looks about 10 years younger.
He does, don't he?
It's no kids.
Yeah.
He's definitely
mate.
He's definitely a good-looking bastard, isn't he, Paul? Bear 66. Very, very harsh there.
That's unnecessary.
That is unnecessary. Dan, where can people find you? Obviously, apart from the old people's home, if they want to get hold of you.
Yeah, Twitter, Dan Cox 82, or the Hub. Like I said, if you do like the podcast or whatever, and you're not a member of the Hub, sign up for the Hub. Do you know what I mean? Because it is our site, isn't it, sort of thing, and that is everything you need for Sky is there. So sign up for the Hub and Twitter. And follow me on Twitter, because that cat is still ahead of me. It's annoying.
That's the cat. Paul, where can we find you?
At Paul McAnulty 1, so it's MCANULTY.
Smashing. My Twitter handle is at Fergie222. So this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub, Sky and TFF YouTube channel, and also available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you've watched, please press the like button. Again, please press like. Remember to subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast version and leave some comments. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are at FFH_HQ. Our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you'll find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta-Stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more, all of which is now available on our new free app. Just search wherever you get your apps for Fantasy Football Hub. Some big news. We'll be back next week with none other than Sky planning maestro Ian Parrin standing in for Paul McAnulty, who is off gallivanting for a few days. So Paul's not here next week, but Ian Parrin, the fixture connoisseur, the perfect man we need to start off our planning for the overhaul, will be joining us live next week. So everyone has got that to look forward to. From all of us, have a good week. Happy planning, and we'll be back next Sunday at 9 o'clock. See you then, and good night.